They said I was broken, barren. He believed them, divorced me for it. 6 months later, I'm standing in his office, visibly pregnant. The color drains from his face. "That's impossible," he whispers. I smile. "No, Robert. What's impossible is what you're about to lose." Before I tell you how I got here, if you love stories about karma, justice, and secrets that change everything, hit that like button right now. Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. And stay until the end, because what happens next will leave you speechless. My name is Camille, and this is the story of how I discovered that everything I'd been told about myself was a lie. A carefully constructed lie designed to erase me from a life I was never supposed to have in the first place. I met Robert Ashford at a charity gala 4 years ago. He was this commanding presence in the room, tall, confident, running one of the most successful real estate development companies on the East Coast. Old money, the kind of family that has buildings and hospital wings named after them. I was there showcasing my work in architectural restoration, and somehow we ended up talking for 3 hours straight. He seemed genuinely fascinated by my passion for preserving historic buildings, for honoring stories written in brick and stone. 6 months later, we were married. It felt like a fairy tale, except fairy tales don't prepare you for the reality of marrying into a family that sees you as a temporary fascination. His mother, Patricia Ashford, smiled at our wedding, but her eyes told a different story. I was the beautiful black woman her son was experimenting with, and she was certain it wouldn't last. She just needed to wait me out. The first year was beautiful. Robert and I traveled, we laughed, we built what I thought was a real partnership. Then came the conversations about children. He wanted them. I wanted them. We both assumed it would happen naturally. Month after month, it didn't. That's when the appointments started, the fertility specialists, the tests, the treatments that made my body feel like a science experiment. And through it all, Patricia's presence loomed larger. She'd drop by with articles about fertility clinics. She'd mention, casually, how important it was to continue the Ashford legacy. How Robert's father would have wanted grandchildren. The word legacy became a weapon she wielded with surgical precision, and it always seemed to be pointed directly at me. After 2 years of trying, Robert insisted we see Dr. Raymond Kepler. "He's been our family physician for 30 years, Robert said. "If anyone can help us, it's him." I should have questioned why we needed his family's doctor instead of continuing with my fertility specialist, but I was desperate. Desperate to give Robert what he wanted. Desperate to prove Patricia wrong. Desperate to feel like I belonged in this world I'd married into. Dr. Kepler ran a battery of tests. I remember sitting in his office, mahogany desk between us, walls lined with photos of him with the Ashford family going back decades. Robert held my hand as Dr. Kepler delivered the news. "I'm very sorry, Camille," he said, his voice dripping with practiced sympathy. "The tests show severe uterine scarring and hormonal deficiencies. The likelihood of you carrying a pregnancy to term is less than 1%. For all practical purposes, you're infertile." The world stopped. I felt Robert's hand go limp in mine. I looked at him, searching for comfort, for reassurance that this didn't change us. But his eyes were distant, already calculating, already withdrawing. We drove home in silence. That night, he slept in the guest room. He said he needed space to process. That space became permanent. The next 3 months were a slow-motion deterioration of everything we'd built. Robert threw himself into work, staying at the office later and later. When he was home, he was cold, distant, treating me like a roommate he'd grown tired of. Patricia's visits increased. She'd have tea with Robert in his study, their voices low, conspiratorial. I wasn't invited to these conversations about my own marriage. Then came the night that shattered everything. I came home early from a project site, walked into our penthouse and heard sounds from the bedroom. Not our bedroom, the guest suite. I stood outside that door for what felt like an eternity, my hand on the doorknob, debating whether I really wanted to know. But I already knew. I'd known for weeks. I just hadn't wanted to face it. Her name was Lauren Westbrook, VP of Acquisitions at Robert's company, blonde, accomplished, from a family Patricia approved of, and 3 months pregnant. I discovered that detail not from Robert's confession, but from the ultrasound photo on the nightstand that I saw when I finally opened that door. They didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. Robert just looked relieved that he didn't have to keep pretending anymore. "I need an heir, Camille," he said, standing there in his unbuttoned shirt like this was a business negotiation. "You can't give me that. Lauren can. This is what's best for everyone." What's best for everyone. As if my devastation was just a minor inconvenience in his master plan. As if 3 years of marriage could be erased by a medical diagnosis and his need to please his mother. The divorce was brutal and quick. I'd signed a prenup tip. Robert's lawyers had insisted, and I'd been too in love to care. Now that prenup became a noose. I walked away with barely enough to start over while Robert kept everything. The penthouse, the vacation homes, the life we'd built together. His lawyers painted me as a gold digger who'd trapped their client with false promises of children I knew I couldn't deliver. In the end, I just wanted it over. I wanted out of that family, out of that life, out of the suffocating weight of their disappointment and disdain. Robert's last words to me outside the courthouse were almost kind. Almost. "I hope you find happiness, Camille. At least now I can have the family I always wanted." He said it like he was setting me free, doing me a favor. I watched him walk away, Lauren waiting by his car, her hand protectively over her small baby bump, and I felt something inside me break and harden at the same time. I left New York. I couldn't stay in that city where everything reminded me of my failure. I took the one thing I'd kept, my career, and buried myself in it. A major project came through, restoring a network of historic Black churches across the South. It was the kind of work that fed my soul, connecting me to stories of resilience and survival that mirrored my own journey. I traveled to Charleston, threw myself into measurements and blueprints and the honest work of honoring the past while building toward the future. That's where I met Dr. Eloise Patterson. She was this force of nature in her 70s, running a small practice in a neighborhood the fancy hospitals had forgotten. I'd gone in for what I thought was exhaustion and maybe a stomach bug from too much travel and not enough self-care. Dr. Patterson was thorough in a way that felt old-fashioned, asking questions, really listening to the answers, treating me like a whole person instead of a collection of symptoms. When she told me she wanted to run some tests, I almost laughed. "I appreciate your diligence, Dr. Patterson, but if this is about pregnancy, I'm infertile. That ship has sailed." She looked at me over her glasses with this expression I couldn't quite read. "Humor an old woman," she said. "Let's just make sure." 3 days later, I was back in her office, and the world tilted on its axis for the second time in a year. "Camille," Dr. Patterson said, her voice gentle but firm, "you're pregnant, about 10 weeks along, and from what I can see, everything looks perfectly healthy." I laughed. Actually laughed, because the alternative was screaming. "That's impossible. I'm infertile. I have test results. I have a diagnosis from one of the best fertility doctors in—" Dr. Patterson held up her hand. "Tell me about this, doctor. Tell me everything about your diagnosis." So I did. I told her about Dr. Kepler, about the tests, about the devastating news. And as I talked, her expression grew darker, more troubled. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and asked, "Did you ever get a second opinion? Did you ever see these test results yourself, or was everything communicated through Dr. Kepler?" The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. I realized, with growing horror, that I'd never actually seen my own medical records. Dr. Kepler had told us the results. Robert had accepted them without question, and I, desperate and defeated, had believed without verifying. Dr. Patterson made some calls. Within 2 days, she'd obtained my actual medical records from the fertility specialists I'd seen before Dr. Kepler. We sat in her office, and she walked me through them, page by page. My hormone levels were normal. My uterus was healthy. There was no scarring. There was nothing wrong with me. Nothing had ever been wrong with me. "But Robert," I whispered, the implications crashing over me like waves. Dr. Patterson's expression was grave. "Camille, I've been practicing medicine for 45 years. I've seen cases like this before, though thankfully not many. When old money families decide someone isn't suitable, sometimes they find ways to solve the problem. Dr. Kepler's been the Ashford family physician for 30 years, you said? The room spun. Everything I'd believed about myself, about my failure, about my body's betrayal. It was all a lie. A calculated, deliberate lie designed to push me out of Robert's life. And Robert. Was there ever anything about Robert's fertility in these records? I asked, my voice shaking. Dr. Patterson pulled out another file. She'd been thorough, bless her. According to the tests run 2 years ago, your husband had severely low sperm count and motility issues. The likelihood of him naturally fathering a child was extremely low. That's actually in the notes from your original fertility specialist, flagged for follow-up testing that apparently never happened. Robert was infertile, or nearly so, and his mother had known. She'd known her son couldn't give her the grandchildren she wanted, couldn't continue the precious Ashford legacy, so she'd made sure I took the blame. She'd convinced Dr. Kepler to falsify my results, to destroy my marriage, to let me walk away believing I was broken when I never was. And Lauren's baby. I spent the next 2 weeks in a haze of rage and calculation. I wanted to scream, to call Robert and burn his world down with the truth. But Dr. Patterson, wise woman that she was, counseled patience. Get your evidence together, she said. Make sure you have everything documented, then decide how you want to handle this. She helped me file complaints with medical boards, gather statements, document everything. And in the process, we discovered something even more disturbing. Dr. Kepler had done this before. 3 other women married to men in Patricia Ashford's social circle had received similar diagnoses from him. 3 other marriages had ended. 3 other women had walked away, believing they were defective. It was a pattern, a service he provided to families who wanted their sons' unsuitable marriages to end without the mess of admitting their prejudice. I stayed in Charleston as my pregnancy progressed. I was 5 months along when my lawyer called about a property issue. Robert wanted to contest something about a small piece of land I'd inherited from my grandmother. It was petty, vindictive, and so typical of Patricia's influence. But it gave me an opening, an excuse to see him face to face. At 6 months pregnant, I walked into Robert's office building for the first time since the divorce. Security recognized me, waved me through out of habit. I could see the shock on their faces when they noticed my condition. Good. Let the rumors start before I even reached his floor. Robert's assistant stammered when I appeared. Ms. Beaumont, he's not expecting. I smiled at her. It's fine, Amanda. He'll want to see me. Trust me. I didn't wait for permission. I opened his office door and walked in like I still belonged there. Robert was on the phone. He looked up, annoyed at the interruption, and then his face went through a series of expressions I'll treasure forever. Confusion, recognition, shock, and then complete, utter disbelief as his eyes traveled to my very obviously pregnant belly. He ended his call without saying goodbye, just hung up the phone like a robot whose programming had crashed. Camille. My name came out as barely a whisper. What? How? That's not possible. I closed the door behind me and walked to his desk with all the confidence of a woman who finally knows the truth. Hello, Robert. You're looking well? Fatherhood treating you nicely? Oh wait, that's right. You're not actually a father, are you? You're pregnant. He said it like he was trying to convince himself he wasn't hallucinating. But you can't be. You're infertile. Dr. Kepler said. Dr. Kepler lied. I placed a folder on his desk. These are my real medical records, the ones from actual ethical doctors who didn't falsify test results as a favor to your mother. I was never infertile, Robert. There's nothing wrong with me. There never was. I watched him process this, watched the implications ripple across his face. Then whose baby? He looked at my stomach, then back at my face, and I saw the moment understanding hit him. Mine? 10 weeks into the pregnancy when we divorced, apparently. Funny how that works. Almost like your family doctor was more interested in breaking up our marriage than actually determining what was wrong. I leaned forward, hands on his desk. Want to know what else is in that file? Your fertility tests. The real ones, from before your mother got involved. Severe male factor infertility, Robert. You're the one who can't have children. Or at least, the chances are so low that any pregnancy would be a miracle. The color drained from his face. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. That's not... My mother said, your mother knew. She's known all along. Why do you think she pushed you to Dr. Kepler? Why do you think she was so convinced Lauren was the answer to your problems? I paused, letting the next bomb arm itself. Speaking of Lauren, congratulations on the baby. Beautiful child, I'm sure. Does he look like Daniel? Your business partner Daniel? Because according to the paternity test results in that folder, yes, I had them run anonymously, hair from his brush is easy enough to obtain. He's definitely Daniel's son, not yours. Robert's world crumbled in real time. I watched him pick up the folder with shaking hands, flip through the documents, medical records, paternity tests, statements from Dr. Patterson, complaints filed with medical boards, evidence of Dr. Kepler's pattern of fraud, all of it meticulously documented and verified. My mother... He looked up at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, Robert Ashford looked small. She did this? She knew about my... And she blamed you? She made me divorce you because I wasn't the right kind of wife for an Ashford. I finished the sentence he couldn't. Because no matter what I did, I would never be Patricia's idea of acceptable. So she made sure I couldn't stay. Made sure you'd have a reason to leave me that didn't sound like the prejudice it actually was. Made sure I'd walk away thinking I was the problem. He sank into his chair, the folder still clutched in his hands. Lauren and Daniel, all this time. The betrayal was written all over his face, and I felt a savage satisfaction I'm not entirely proud of, but I'd earned that feeling. Here's what's going to happen, Robert. My voice was calm, controlled. I've already filed complaints against Dr. Kepler with every medical board that will listen. He's going to lose his license, and he's going to face criminal charges for medical fraud. Your mother's involvement is documented. She'll face consequences too. Criminal, social, I don't really care which as long as everyone knows what she did. Camille, please. I'm not finished. I straightened up, hands resting on my belly, on the child they'd all said would never exist. You're going to do 3 things. First, you're going to make a public statement acknowledging the fraud and your mother's role in it. You're going to apologize to me and to the other women she victimized. Second, you're going to establish a full trust fund for this child, controlled entirely by me. You'll have supervised visitation if I decide you've earned it, but you get no say in how she's raised. And third, you're going to fund a foundation I'm creating to help other women who've experienced reproductive coercion and medical fraud. Robert looked up at me, broken and desperate. And if I refuse? I smiled, and it wasn't kind. Then all of this goes public anyway, but without your cooperation. The scandal will destroy everything you've built. Your company will collapse under the weight of it. Every business relationship you have will disappear when people learn what your family did. Lauren will take you for everything in the divorce once this comes out, and you'll still lose access to your daughter because I'll make sure every court in the country knows exactly what kind of family she'd be exposed to. The silence stretched between us. I could see him calculating, weighing his options, realizing he had none. You've won, he finally said. You have every right to destroy me. I don't blame you. I don't want to destroy you, Robert. And I realized as I said it that it was true. I just want the truth to matter. I want justice for what was done to me, to those other women. I want my daughter to grow up knowing she was wanted, knowing she was never a mistake or an impossibility. That's all I've ever wanted, just to be seen as I actually am, not as your mother decided I should be. 2 days later, Robert called a press conference. He told everything. His mother's scheme, Dr. Kepler's fraud, the other women who'd been victimized. Patricia Ashford was arrested. Dr. Kepler surrendered his medical license and faced multiple criminal charges. Lauren left Robert, taking Daniel with her, and the truth about their son came out in the divorce proceedings. Robert's business partner resigned in disgrace. I watched it all unfold from Charleston, my hands on my growing belly, feeling my daughter kick and turn. The daughter they said would never exist. The daughter who proved that everything they'd tried to make me believe about myself was a lie. I gave birth on a warm spring morning, Dr. Patterson right there beside me. Naomi Grace, I named her. Naomi because it means pleasant, and Grace because that's what this child represented. Undeserved, unexpected, transformative grace. Robert was there, at the hospital, wanting to meet his daughter. I let him, on my terms, with my conditions. He held her with tears streaming down his face, this child he'd never thought he could have, this miracle born from the ashes of his lies. He's part of Naomi's life now, in a limited way. Supervised visits, video calls. He's trying to be better, to rebuild what his mother's poison destroyed. I haven't forgiven him. I'm not sure I ever will, but I've made peace with the fact that my daughter deserves to know her father, flawed as he is. The foundation I created has helped 18 women so far. Women who were told they were broken, who believed the lies told about their bodies, who walked away from marriages and relationships believing they were failures. We've exposed 2 other doctors engaging in similar fraud, helped women get second opinions, provided legal support for those fighting back. It's become my life's work, alongside raising Naomi and continuing my architectural restoration. Sometimes, late at night when Naomi is sleeping, I think about the woman I was a year ago, broken, defeated, believing I was barren. I think about how close I came to accepting that lie as truth, to letting it define me forever. And I think about the moment in Dr. Patterson's office when everything shifted, when the truth revealed itself and set me free. They tried to write me out of my own story. They tried to make me believe I was less than whole, less than worthy, less than enough. But the truth was always there, waiting to be discovered. And once I knew it, once I held it in my hands like I now hold my daughter, everything changed. Not because I sought revenge, though the justice was sweet, but because I finally saw myself clearly, without the distortion of their lies. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my position. And remember, your truth is your power. Your worth isn't defined by what others say about you or by the lies they tell to diminish you. You are whole, you are enough, and no one can take that away unless you let them. I learned that the hard way. But I learned it. And now every time Naomi laughs or reaches for me with her tiny hands, I'm reminded that the best revenge isn't what you do to others. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't be. It's living proof that their lies had no power over your truth. And trust me, that's a victory sweeter than anything I could have planned.